Calling this meeting to order, Monday, June 10th at 6 p.m. Crosby, call the roll, please.
Mike.
Here.
Jake.
Here.
Gail.
Here.
Dale.
Here.
Eric.
Here.
Vito.
Here.
Carolyn.
Carolyn is excused.
Craig.
Here.
Crosby here.
All right, this is an open meeting and has been posted. Please join me for a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up is presentations.
Tonight we have Brandy Hart and Christina Oswald here, and Rachel will do a brief introduction and have an opportunity to say hello to the board and our new employees at not Big Ben, Clarendon, and Food Service.
Awesome. Welcome.
All right, so we'll start with Brandy. Come on up. So excited to introduce you to Brandy Hart. Brandy, I'll let you sit down. So Brandy is coming to us with 20 years of educational experience. She has 6 years as an elementary teacher and 14 years as a school administrator. She received her bachelor's degree in education from Winona State University and her master's in educational leadership from Cardinal Stritch University. She has been a principal at St. Anthony's School in Milwaukee and is currently the principal at Hadfield Elementary School in the Waukesha School District. Brandy puts students at the center of her decision-making, and she approaches her work with a can-do attitude. She will bring strengths in trust, relationship building, and communication to this position, along with her incredible expertise in curriculum and instruction. We are excited to welcome Brandy Hart as the principal to Clarendon Elementary School.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, Brandy. Okay. Brandy, what made you decide to come to Mukwonago?
I see how amazing your school district is, how...
Okay, you're good. Thank you. No, I'm kidding.
Yes,
Go ahead.
no, I love all the learning that's happening out here, and I wanted to be a part of it.
The Waukesha School Board loves us, by the way.
Awesome.
Thank you. What's that? Poaching. Yes, we are poaching. But a lot of good reviews from the folks in Waukesha, so welcome.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Any questions for us, Brandy?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay, we'll write a lot of emails.
I didn't put this in the formal review, but my mother, who is the best teacher I've ever worked with, Brandy was my mom's principal. And my mother swears, and still to this day at 70 years old, if Brandy said, Mary, I need you to come work for me today, she would, because that was how good Brandy was. So
Awesome.
Very excited. All right, Christina, you're next. Come on up. So we are welcoming Christina Oswald as the new food service director. And yep.
Come on. We did it for Brandy. We have to do it for Christina.
Yes, we do. All right, Christina is coming to us also with over 20 years of experience in the food service industry. She has served as a cook, a lead cook, a food service director, regional chef, chief operations officer, and she is currently serving as the director of nutrition services for the Fort Atkinson School District. Christina is collaborative and works hard to build relationships with those she serves. She utilizes stakeholder feedback, including student feedback, to customize menus, ensuring that food is both nutritional and delicious. We are very excited to welcome Christina to the Mukwonago Area School District.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
She gets two. She gets two.
It's okay.
Got excited. Yeah. So, Christina, you're currently in Wind Lake, which is a nice commute.
Yes, it is.
And so I realized you have chef on your resume,
I do.
so we can take that chef thing off of our wish list. Is that correct? Okay, awesome. Good job, Christina.
Yeah, we'll see where we go.
You're going to like Mukwonago.
I think I already do.
Awesome.
Nice.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Year in review?
Year in review. So when we set out at the beginning of the year, we talked about setting some goals and then keeping the board posted as to some of the things that we focused on this year and some of our accomplishments. So I just want to take you through kind of a high level by department, going from our district goals through some of the work that was done departmentally, and then trying to help us shift now, I can't believe we're saying it, to the 24-25 school year, and then just share our commitment to ongoing progress monitoring and board updates. So just because we set a goal doesn't mean by the end of the year you accomplish it. It does take intentional work, but it also then takes us revisiting that to see, are we on track with things or not? So Tom, if you could scroll down a little bit. So we set out this year, we developed 2 goals for our system, and it came about in November as we reviewed our results of the state report cards that we saw for our school. Those are large forward-facing benchmarks for our district, and we are aiming to be in the top 10% as a school district and then top 10% by each school. And then the second one, the district will be a destination district for staff and residents by ensuring the responsible and efficient use of fiscal resources and building a supportive professional culture within and amongst all employees. So we did do a lot of work this year on obviously attracting and retaining employees, but also seeking feedback from our staff as to what do we value in the district, what's going well, where are areas of improvement. So Tom, if you could advance. So our district strategic learning objectives, if you click on that, please. We wanted to create this year some forward-facing benchmarks for us as a system that the community can look at and say, hey, district is on track, not on track. Stephanie, Rachel, Christine, and Tom met within their respective departments and came up with both the academic and the financial pieces. And in full transparency, some of these areas are TBD. We're still working on trying to gather the data in some areas as we didn't have a record of how we were doing in some performance areas, things that we really value. So as you look at that, just some real highlights there. All district schools are ranked exceeds expectations or higher. Our benchmark, you'll see those are on the right-hand side, and our current state is in the left-hand side of those 2 columns, and 7 of our 8 schools are currently there. As we scroll down here, one that I do really want to highlight, because it's an area that I look at Stephanie and her team and Christine and the work that they have done. If you look at the Wisconsin Forward Exam for ELA at the grade 3 level, we know that grade 3 reading is extremely important. If scroll up a little bit, thank you. Yeah, so that 64.8%, that is the highest score. I'm sorry, where are we, Tom? Can you scroll up a little bit? Thank you. 65.4%. That is the highest score in Waukesha County. We're proud of that. We know that from year to year these scores go up and down a little bit, but we set a benchmark in that area of 70% of our students meeting proficiency at that level. The other one that we're very proud of, and you kind of look at on the other end, the number of students scoring below basic. Our benchmark is 4%, but we're currently at 6.3%. Again, that's a very good proficiency mark, and this has been years and years of work in our curriculum department. Our teachers, our principals really having a laser-like focus in literacy, and we see that is a standard that we have set for ourselves, but it is something that we continue to work on. If you scroll down a little bit, please, Tom, you'll see some marks essentially around addressing ACT, particularly at the high school level. We've set a benchmark of 22. That is our goal for MHS. We want to make sure that we're providing a comprehensive education to our students. But we do know that the ACT is something that as a school district, people look to us and say, hey, how are you performing on that test? That does influence that high school report card. Our current result has been 20.7. That was as of the time of this. We are still awaiting the final ACT results. Those will come to us probably November, Stephanie? October. We do believe we've made some progress. There was very intentional effort this year to move that score up. But again, our benchmark is 22, so we have some area to grow there. If you look at our target groups, we want to be our target group students. So these are the students that are in the bottom 25th percentile academically. We want those students to be scoring at 18. And we believe that this does 2 things. One, it keeps all doors open for students when they leave us on graduation day. We had a wonderful graduation ceremony yesterday. We want those students, when they walk across the stage, to have options. You don't need to be college bound. You can go into the trades, you can go into the service, you can go to the technical school. All of that is important. We just believe we want to make sure that students have keys to all of those doors when they leave us. So that 18 and 22 are going to be targets that we continue to strive for. We have industry credentials on there. Currently, 45% of our students graduating have an industry credential. We're shooting for 66%. We want 2/3 of our students to have that industry credential. And that just, it goes and reinforces the great work that we're doing in the career and tech ed program. The percent of AP exams earning a 3 or better. The 3 is the marker by which students can earn the college credit. And having that 3 or higher, we want to have 73% of our students there. So these are some stretch goals for us, but we believe that they're very attainable over the next couple of years. You will continue to see us reporting out to you as administration to the board in these areas. So Tom, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down. We also have a number of performance indicators as it focuses on personnel and finance. And this was an area where, particularly in the area of personnel, we didn't have really good benchmarks. We are shooting for staff retention. Rachel and Sarah Scheel have dug through all of our retirements, our resignations over the past school year, and they found that we retain 94% of our staff from one year to the next. It's a great benchmark. When you look at the amount of work that we do in student learning to onboard and professionally develop our teachers, once we make that investment in them, we want them to stay with us. Yes?
So with 94% retention rate, you'd think the third question would be a little higher.
Yep. And so when you get into that third question, and that's a great point, we set a 90% benchmark, but when you look at kind of where we were at, we hadn't surveyed our staff very much. And if you're not getting the feedback as to what's going well, what isn't going well, what do you value about our organization, you don't really know what questions and then what follow-up to have. So I would recommend MASD as a great place to work. When we surveyed this in the fall, we were at 59.5%. We currently are at 64%. This one question drove a lot of the work that we did with human resources this year. It led to the stay interviews. It led to the bringing back the Vision Keeper Awards and really engaging staff in that cycle of feedback. So, Craig, we really think that this is kind of good baseline information for us on the front end, and it is going to drive our work into the future as to making sure that our staff have the feeling that this is a great place to work. Being new, though, and being brand new, this is a great place. And I've worked in 7 school districts prior to coming here.
Honeymoon's just about over.
Yeah, I know. Actually, it hit a year right now, so I anticipate now that But I've worked in school districts from Cedarburg to the Milwaukee Public Schools. And when I look at the climate and the culture in our buildings, the community that we serve, the resources that we have, we are very well positioned for that. And for us to make sure that we listen to our staff, that we make adjustments where we need to, but we continue that partnership that we have with our teachers, our aides, and our parents and our community. We feel that that's a very important thing. So it is going to drive our work into the future, but you're right. I mean, people are sticking around, which is great. But what does it mean then? How do you go from it being a place I want to stay to a place that I would say is a great place?
I think it's a great thing to see if you read social media and all the rumors about everybody's fleeing our district make it sound like 50% of our staff are leaving. So that's a great number to see.
Right. We are going to be this summer digging into our SLOs, our student learning objectives, to answer the question about are they aligned with our district's strategic objectives. This is going to be an area that we monitor with our principals as those are reviewed each year, making sure that when you look at those academic objectives that we have above, that we can see the direct connection to the work that's happening in the classroom. We do have a number of areas, though, where we are already on track. We're maintaining a 25% fund balance. That puts us in a very favorable, it gives us that AA bond rating. We did this year, it's been an ongoing project for Tom and for the board and for Christine, just having a building acquired for the SOAR programming. And then you look at our capital budget, our capital maintenance projects, and Tom and Andy have a budget in Fund 10, 41, and 46 set aside to address what our building needs are. So this year, we are meeting that out of our capital budget. MHS, the roof, you will see the guys on site within the next few weeks, Tom. And that is our big project this year from a capital standpoint. And again, funded out of district budget. So we feel very good where this has landed for us. It's something that we continue to put our eyes on. We may come back to you in the future and say maybe we're too ambitious or maybe we accomplished the goal and there's something then for us to address.
Hate to backtrack. If we could go back to the career credentials.
Yep.
So when I look at the difference between where we're at and where we need to go on some of these, that's a pretty big increase. Almost 50% or so. Any capacity constraints that would need to be addressed to make that happen? Are there any constraints?
I'm going to ask Stephanie, who's been a little bit more connected.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that was my question too, is if we're maxed out on CTE courses, how do we hit that benchmark?
So I think in some ways that we might be coming back and talking about some of them that don't have as big of a growth rate. I worked with Dustin quite a bit on this one to make sure that he felt like this was achievable. And I think actually that one is probably going to be more achievable, even though it looks like a greater growth rate, than some of our ones up above where it's moving an already very high achieving third grade reading score even up a little bit. We are not maximizing the number of kids that can take the tests. And so I feel like that's a reasonable goal at this point.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any more questions on these benchmarks here? So Tom, if you jump back into the slides. Just the first department that we'll touch on is finance and facilities. And a lot of the work that led into these goals had happened years in the making. Our health plan. We have the clinic in place, the flu clinic, the mobile mammogram, opportunity for staff. That was an area of priority. The budget, just staff compensation, that has continued to come up. I know that it's a priority of the boards. Early retirement offer, which we provided to staff. Our facility planning, our 10-year facility plan continues to be refreshed each year. We did have the 2024 referendum. Didn't pass, but we are in the process now of garnering additional feedback from our community. We did purchase the SOAR building. There was a large referendum debt repayment, and then the HVAC control updates that the board approved several months ago. And then food service, just reviewing the outsourcing of the food program. And tonight we have the replacement in Christina with Pam Harris. So a lot of work done in finance this year. Going into next year, again, focusing on the health plan in year 2, changing our clinic operator, possibly implementing the health risk assessment, food service review, facility planning, continue all efforts in the 10-year. Looking at a district-wide staffing analysis, making sure that we maintain the needs, the student need that we have in the system, and making sure that our priorities are supported and funded. The conversion to Skyward, we are making a move in that regard. And if you walk into the district office on any given day and it kind of looks like mission control up front, everybody's got the headset on, everybody's looking at, they're in day-long meetings in this transition. So that has been a heavy lift for Tom and his team, and we really appreciate their efforts there. And then just looking at safety, taking a look at the Verkada system, see if that can help us with our building security, and then continuing to focus on our reunification process should we ever have an event. Under human resources, the certified staff hiring process was built this year. Staff handbooks for professional and support staff, administrative training on educator effectiveness and the focus on staff retention and staff perception. Going into next year, due to a variety of external factors, we are switching the instrument by which we do evaluation for principals and for teachers this year. We're going to be moving to the STRONG model. This is the model that's supported by CESA 6. Staff retention through culture and climate, new teacher onboarding and ongoing professional development, and then principal development around teacher evaluation. Making this switch from one system to the next is going to be a bit of an adjustment for us. The STRONG model is much more user-friendly for both the teacher as the evaluatee and then the administrator as the evaluator. So we'll go through the adjustment with that, but we'll support the staff through that, and Rachel and her team will continue to do that. Tom, if you could advance. In student learning, This has been ongoing for years, but that focus on literacy has really, really helped us. This year we implemented professional learning communities, and then we had maintained an emphasis on a guaranteed and viable curriculum, particularly making sure that we're ready for Act 20. We just got through the review and approval for the Bridges curriculum, K-5 for math, and then the pilot for grades 7 through 12 in science. So a lot of heavy lifting there by Stephanie and her team. In 24-25, again, the implementation of Act 20, Bridges across the elementary level, the guaranteed and viable curriculum, focusing on formative assessments and the utilization of classroom data, maintaining that focus around professional learning communities, and then a housing for our curriculum documents so that they're easy and readily available to our staff to get. If we go down to student services, our priorities this year were Tier 1 behavioral solutions, discipline norming for administration, exploration of the Rural Behavioral Health Institute model, executive functioning professional development, and an emphasis on improving student performance on ELA math for our students with disabilities. Going into next year, maintaining that focus on ELA and math for our students with disabilities, strengthening our Tier 1 foundational expectations for student behavior, intervention, and responses, sustaining our mental health resources and pathways. This year we did bring on Care Solace as a tool for families and maintaining the focus on that as a resource for our students and families. And then building the leadership capacity and special education practices and priorities. You will hear updates this coming year. We're going to be going through a procedural compliance self-assessment for special education. Christine will be providing updates. That is a DPI mandated 5-year thing. Our number is called this year. We have to do that. And that leadership and capacity is really going to be an area of focus because that gets down into IEP compliance. And that's the thing that the DPI comes back and takes a look at us every 5 years on. And then our district-wide area of focus, we wanted to update our district policy manual. We had the referendum and then the summer community survey. Wanted to maintain clear and transparent communication with board, parents, staff, and our community. We want people to know what we're doing and why we're doing it. We're available for whatever questions need to be answered. We want to develop, evaluate, retain, and attract our current district staff and staff new to our district. In 24-25, again, focusing on budget utilization to bring staff in line with comparable districts, our budget utilization to accomplish our 10-year facility study, increase community engagement around facility needs, and support, develop, and grow our organization around our strategic objectives. The strategic objectives are a new thing for us. We want to continue to work with our staff to make sure that they understand that and they know what the target is. And then if we go down, our ongoing monitoring and communication. So we want to utilize our team meetings to share data, instructional, and leadership practices. We want to build our leadership reports at administrative meetings, focusing on student growth and achievement. Continue the process of informing the board and the community of our work at the committee of the whole and the board meetings. Committee and board meetings addressing the ACT results, CTE results, and school report card. We want to continue to bring forward our student achievement, our areas of growth, our areas of success. We want to utilize the key news and staff update newsletters with important information for our families, community, and staff. We want to establish an avenue. This is something that we've heard through the community survey process. People want information. They want to know what's going on, and we want to develop that avenue simply by submitting an email address so that we can have essentially a community group that we then are able to email. We have staff emails. We have parent emails. We even have the student emails if we need to communicate something to them. But for the average citizen who would like to be on a mailing list from us, we want to have that established. And we can blast out our key news then to our citizens so that they get that update every 2 or 3 weeks. And then just increase our direct mailing efforts to our residents. Again, through 2 community surveys, we've heard, please send us something in the mail. We prefer to sit down and read it. We're not going to social media, and we're not in your email group. So again, making sure that our folks that are not parents and not staff members know what's going on in our system. So with that, I know that was pretty quick, but I and the group here are ready to answer any questions if you have them.
I don't see any questions. Thank you.
All right.
Move on to consent agenda. Looking for the approval of school board special meeting minutes of May 20, 2024. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, consent is approved. Going down to F, policy.
So coming forward tonight, and we will have up for approval in 2 weeks, the policies that we brought forward in May. Happy to answer any questions or get you additional information between now and our June 24th meeting. I don't know if you noticed anything. I didn't hear anything from board members between our May committee of the whole and now.
Crosby?
I'd like to address policy 8700. I do not want to change the language to lactating employees. I would like to keep it as nursing mothers. I think the rest of it is fine, especially the addition of some clarification that's in there. And then also the clarification that it does not apply to students, that they would have to work with the Director of Student Services. But I think any references to lactating employee or, I forget what the other one was. I'll find it. Expressing breast milk. I mean, can't we just say breastfeeding? However we want to phrase it, I'm not okay with lactating employee.
Okay, if we can come back on the 24th with that change and for the board to consider on the 24th.
Okay.
I think we've hit that one before, correct? We've discussed that before. I agree, Crosby.
I think we did touch on it. I just didn't know if that change could be made now,
Oh,
so that we don't have to amend
No, agreed.
it
I
when
got
we're
you.
voting
I
on
got you.
it
Yep.
next week.
Can we have that in there for our next meeting, so we don't have to make amendments and it can be more
Correct.
clean
This
to
is
pass?
this is the feedback cycle and
Perfect.
opportunity to talk about it. So that can go back to nursing mothers policy 8700.
Perfect. Any other questions on that? All right. Thank you. Moving on to policy 5136.
Yeah, so we're bringing forward a policy tonight on personal communication devices. So the 5000 series is the student policies. This does not address staff. This is a student policy. There were some questions that had come in from a variety of our stakeholders over the last several months just around cell phone usage in schools. Do we have a specific policy on it or not? What does that need to look like? So we're bringing forward a policy tonight. For perspective purposes, this policy, I guess from the drafting notes, please know anything struck and in pink is not something that we're going to consider. But we're coming forward then with the options under option D. And so if you look at the language under option D, which starts with students may not use personal communication devices on school property or at school-sponsored activities to access or view internet websites that are otherwise blocked to students at school. That's really where we're beginning this particular policy. We're coming at this from a most restrictive or a more restrictive type position on it. We have heard from any number of people and through any number of studies the impact that cell phones are having on learning, on attention. We see issues with social media usage. We see issues, when something is happening in the school and people are going to their phones to record it, whatever it might be. So we know that this takes a strong position against the cell phones. We also know, as I'm looking across the room at Stephanie and her team, we know that this is going to take a pretty heavy lift, particularly at the beginning of the year, if this is the direction that we choose to go. They will have to have a laser-like focus on addressing this, not only in the classroom setting, but this would have to be something that is addressed in the hallways during the lunchroom lunchtime, whatever it might be. So we're coming forward with this. We know that this, again, it would be a lot of work to implement. It would be the work from the teachers. It would be the work from the administrators. It would be an all-hands-on-deck approach from the staff in order to get this going. But we do know that this helps then remedy the problems that we have with cell phones in our schools. So coming forward for discussion tonight, ideas, feedback. This is not up for action tonight. This is something then that would be coming back in 2 weeks for potential approval by the board.
As I've been going around the district, I've asked almost every staff member I run into about cell phone policy, and every one of them gave a thumbs up and said we need to be stricter with our phones. I think only one staff member, the only reservation they had was the implementation part. other than that, overwhelmingly, they were like, get the cell phones out of the classroom.
Yep. I have my parent group, we met last week, and I told them that we were coming forward with a cell phone policy. There wasn't any disagreement in that meeting about it either. I think parents, run into similar challenges as educators around, their kids with their phones and everything else, so I didn't hear any objections in that room either.
Okay. So, 3 things. I read this and I thought, oh, parents are gonna have a flip and just go nuts. I'm gonna wait for it.
Somebody is.
Yeah, but then I thought, okay, there has to be other schools doing this, and the results have to be out there somewhere, correct?
Yeah, there are other schools that have cell phone policies in place. Some are as restrictive as this. Some are a step away from this, where kids are required to put their cell phones away during class. They can't be out during class. And there's flexibility then during the hallways and in the cafeteria time with them.
Okay. And then Stephanie, this is needed. This is going to work. This is going to get to a 10% goal that we committed to.
I definitely believe that kids cannot pay attention and learn to their fullest when they have their phones they're worried about in the classroom.
Okay. And then when a parent if there's an emergency at home, they can still call the office, correct?
Of course.
Okay, I
Yes.
mean, it's not like we're
Yes.
taking away their safety net or anything, correct?
Correct.
Okay, what are the downside of this? What are the negatives to this?
The downsides to me, just things that we really need to think through this summer, because this will cause battles
Sure.
with a very new administrative team at the high school. I'm going to have to figure out how to create relationships with kids and not be seen as, oh, the new team comes in and now we can't have our phones out, and running into having battles with kids constantly over it. And so we really just need to put our heads together and figure out how to go about that. Parent support in our community will be incredibly, incredibly important.
Thank you.
I believe Germantown, I think they give the kids tickets if they have their phones out in school. So there's more extreme than what we're looking at.
Tom's like, yes, a new revenue stream.
Any other questions on this?
Vito had one in the
Oh,
91.
Vito?
I think it's important that we get the why, like details on the why on the record. We got where people can watch this and see what we're doing. If like I saw it, my kid brought it to me and said, "Hey, what's this about?" And then I got another text from another kid, like, "Hey, can you explain this to me?" I'm like, "Not really, not yet. We're going to talk about it tonight."
Yeah.
So if we can hear the details as to why is it difficult, what's happening, I'm sure you guys know why this is important, and it'd be great for us to tell everybody that can watch this so that we can.
Yeah, there's research that goes out there that I would say spans the last, say, 35 years. And if you kind of look at what kids were involved in 30 years ago, going back to about 1990, and into the 2000s, kids went from what you would call free play, free organized sports, whatever it was, where they weren't necessarily supervised by adults. It was the playground basketball game, playground football game, the baseball game. It was where kids were playing together and kind of figuring out what the rules needed to be, sorting through their issues and everything like that. In the 90s and in the 2000s, that started to get clamped down on pretty hard. And then you started to see more and more youth sports, to the point right now where kids really don't do the 1970s and 80s version of play anymore. It's always through organized sport, and there's always an adult overseeing them. And the research has pointed out that even through that time, you didn't see an increased issue with student mental health, ADHD, things of that nature. What you saw in around 2010, when the iPhone came onto the scene, was the two-way camera that was there, and kids were recording themselves and they were recording others. And it was during that era, by 2013, you started to see a noticeable rise in mental health issues among female students, and then in 2015 by male students. And we've seen that increase over time. The pandemic expedited that substantially to a place right now where kids, like, the cell phone is just the extension of the kid. And we may have seen this happen, in social gatherings. You'll see kids together and they'll be Snapchatting together. They will be communicating through the device to people who are as close as Mike and I are. That is translated into lost learning in the classroom. While the teacher is trying to talk or while there's time for study, kids are going to the phone first. They're putting music on. That is under the guise of I need it in order to work, but the productivity is going way down. And so what we're seeing then from a learning loss standpoint is a high level of distractibility, an inability to cope without the device, and that is what is affecting the school environment. From a behavior standpoint, when it is implemented inconsistently from classroom to classroom, say Mike is the teacher and he says, no cell phones in my classroom, I'm gonna follow the current school rule, we're not gonna use these at all. And then he comes to my class and I'm like, hey guys, do whatever you wanna do. And then he goes to Vito's class and they try to lock it down again. That shift, it leaves an inconsistent message to the students. Hence the importance of having a policy and an expectation that this is what is followed. So from the learning loss standpoint, we need to make sure that we do something to address the learning loss because of the devices. From a consistency standpoint, we need to be able to say this is the expectation for all staff as it pertains to the implementation of a policy in the district, and then that's something that the teachers then need to be able to carry forward and deliver on in this classroom. So those are the reasons, and if anybody wants to discuss that, I'm happy to do so. But what we've learned more and more over time is that the phone, what was a flip phone for many, many years and was really just to talk on, maybe to text a little bit, it's turned into the lens by which everybody views their life, and that is having an impact on learning.
One more. When I was talking to my son about it, he had mentioned that they actually use them in music class for tuning and things like that. Have we considered either where the kids are legitimately using them and a replacement for how they're using it?
We have looked in areas for like where it could legitimately be used. So that is a perfect example of a spot where, if the teacher needs that student to be able to tune the instrument, the tuning could happen, the device gets put away. We have that ability to make an exception. The problem is it can't get loose to the degree that you get to bounce around and do whatever you want to. Well, Mr. Schwartz, I'm tuning my instrument. Well, you're tuning your instrument 2 minutes ago. I'm still tuning my instrument. I'm tuning my instrument on Instagram or whatever it might be. So that's where we have to have the tightness of the policy. There might be a situation where we had a student who has an accommodation in a 504 or an IEP, and we would need to be able to allow that student the use of that to meet that specific accommodation. So it's not so strict that we would be taking that away, but again, we would be really focusing on then what was the purpose of it instead of free reign on the phone and all of the distractibility.
Thank you.
Crosby?
I just wanted a clarification. So the language will actually start with what is not struck out in option C. Is that correct? That's where the beginning of the policy will start with kind of our general why.
Correct. It starts out with the devices, like right up on the top, it talks about the definition. You skip A and B, you get into C in order to avoid disruption of the educational environment and protect students. You scroll down, and then you get to where it says option D, students may not use PCDs on school property, and then that's kind of how it unfolds. Yep.
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Mike?
I'd just like to reiterate, when we did our school board training, they talked about this, and they even brought up how, and I know we're not the country of Great Britain, but they completely banned it legally in Great Britain or in England. So the experts who were talking to us at the training actually were looking at all these school board new people and getting training, and he said, when are we going to get rid of these things? When are we going to make it? You can't have them in the classroom. So I think it's going to be some growing pains, and probably when you first start, you got to also include the substitute teachers, because they're going to come in and not realize this policy's there. And when I subbed, every kid said, well, when the subs are here, we're allowed to use our phones. No. They didn't realize I was an old military guy and didn't buy into it.
That was Vito's kid.
Guaranteed.
But I think it's a great idea. Whether we end up issuing tickets or actually confiscating them, as some of the language is in here, I don't know, but we can be leaders in this and not wait for the rest of the world to do it, and then we're the last ones too.
Yep.
I'll say it again, our goal is to be top 10%. This is gonna get us there. That's a great talking point, in my opinion.
Yeah, and, you know, in listening, I'm sorry, Mr. Schwartz.
Just to Vito's point, as coaching football this past season, I heard a lot of stories and a lot of games that get played in the classroom where one student will call another student in another classroom just to see if they can get away with it. So there's a lot of games that get played. There's a lot of, what can we get away with? Let's push the limits.
Yeah, they hide one earbud in and they're wireless and you have no idea. They if the teacher's there, they make sure it's over here. I mean, the teacher would have to be watching them like hawks.
Ooh, I got another one. We were talking about it today at work. Obviously, all the parents were in favor of it. Watch this.
Yep, the wearables.
Yep, so there's so you can get a data thing on your watch and have your phone at home apparently and still be doing stuff.
Yep.
Good luck.
The wearables will be a challenge, and we may be coming back to the board with additional language, but we want to prioritize the device itself,
first.
the cell phone first.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that have come up, right? I mean, you look back over our history, say the last 125 years, going back to 1900, when technology really started to boom in our country. We're about 15 years into this experiment with these phones and these devices. And I'll speak for myself. I have to use my phone a lot for work. It is always on me. When I have an opportunity to go out west and elk hunt, I get into areas where I don't have any cell service. So when you say off the grid, I'm completely off the grid in these areas. And it takes me about 24 hours for my behavior to adjust as a 40-something-year-old professional.
So you freak out for a while?
It's not necessarily so much freak out, but it's kind of that pattern of behavior, right? I mean, you think you're walking around, exactly, you're doing that. You're looking down to where your phone is. You want to try to figure out the time of the day. What's the first thing you go to? You grab your phone. You don't necessarily look at your wristwatch. And after about 24 hours, I can kind of feel myself disengage from the technology and really focus on the environment that I'm in. That's me. I can't say that generalizes over everybody, but that feeling of being able to disconnect, if we can allow for some of that in the school environment and then allow kids to focus on learning, I think that's an important thing for us during the school day. The phone is still there after school. Kids can still use the social media when they're at home and whatever their parents' rules are on it. But when we get into the school setting, we need to be all about the learning, and that's a big piece for us.
Christine, maybe we can talk about kids actually what's the word? Dephoning?
Dephoning?
Dephoning.
De-Wi-Fi-ing. I'm just saying, maybe. Yeah, right.
Crosby?
Well, and I do think it's important to also emphasize, we talk a lot about mental health. We have thrown a lot of money at mental health just in the year that I've been on the board, that if in study after study after study shows that kids being on their phones constantly is negatively affecting their mental health.
Yep.
So if we can get them to check out for part of their day, focus on learning, I think it's absolutely worth it.
And make it a positive.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think Christine has been pounding it into us for a long time. I think some of our students were saying 8 hours a day they're on social media. That's insane.
Yeah, it's actually really stunning, the research is. So the more we can support it, that's great.
Okay.
It'd be good for our kids.
Any other questions or comments on that?
I guess I would just throw out there as we get into this, and it's kind of separate but links up to it. I've always had a question about when I was at the military base, it was the base intranet, and when you're sitting at the high school, you don't have great cell service, but you're on the MASD intranet. Mm-hmm. And what steps maybe we need the IT people to talk to us about how we can block some of these other social media things that they may be using to communicate with while they're at the school. I don't know how much that stuff costs. I just know we were able to do it at our base, and other corporations can do it, and I think it's worth looking into and get a cost estimate of that.
What's out there we don't even know about?
Certain sites are blocked right now during the school day. I believe you can't access Facebook, Instagram.
Talk on the microphone, please, Tom.
I know that our technology department has that capability and has done that. I want to say that Facebook and Instagram and God,
TikTok?
Snapchat.
Face Snapbook are not accessible during the day.
And that's on their their devices, they can't access it?
Correct.
Okay.
I could tell you, as a sub, I saw them playing games. I forgot what it's called with the blocks and the people and, anyway, they can type and talk to each other while they're playing that game, and they're readily available to do it.
So-
It's not a social media site or app, it's a game that they have access to.
So we can have Kelly, not in July, but in August, we can have her come to the board meeting and talk a little bit about what we do and how we could lock our system down a little bit tighter. One of the things that we do know people use, they have a VPN on their phone. You can connect a device to that VPN, and that gets you around whatever environment you might be in. So that'll be something we can have Kelly come in and talk about, and just show, like, if the phone isn't on, if the phone is off, if it's out of the way, you know, you might be starting to put some restriction on that. We are going to be charting into a little bit of new territory for us, and I think this is something that we need to monitor over time and see what problems exist in the future for us as it relates to this.
One last quick thing. Again, there's going to be some growing pains with this, but if we look at when we implement this, if it gets implemented as strict as this by this coming school year, the brand new 6th, 7th graders that are carrying phones a lot more than maybe the 3rd and 4th graders, they're going to start getting used to it. So by the time they get up to high school, it's going to take 2, 3, 4, 5 years for them to get used to it. But the high schoolers right now, they're going to have a fit about it. They really are.
Yep.
My own son, who graduated last year, said, "You're crazy, Dad. There's no way you can stop people from being on their phones."
Sorry, Steph.
We have faith in you.
All right,
I guess
anything
I
else?
will ask that, as we implement that, that there is some grace and leeway with the fact that we're gonna concentrate on the educational environment first. And that'll be the first layer that we definitely put into place, is what's happening in the classroom, and put our efforts there, before we're going to, we'll put the policy in place right away, but the main focus at first will definitely be the instructional environment.
Eric?
It says violation of this policy may result in disciplinary action. I think as a kid, if you read that, you're gonna be like, nah, maybe I'll get in trouble, maybe I won't. So maybe if we have something written, you know, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen, just so when, you know, Stephanie or whoever else lays it out for kids, that they know the expectations.
So we have policy 5600.01, which talks about those consequences for student misconduct. And in other policies, we haven't specifically said what those consequences are, because those situations can be very different, case by case. While we are gonna have a laser-like focus on getting this thing implemented right at the beginning of the year, if the board approves it, there's gonna be a part of this that is going to be educational for the students, and part of it is also gonna be educational for the parents. If you look in part of that policy, it says if the phone is confiscated, it will only be turned over to mom or dad when they come into school. That is going to be a big adjustment. I don't think that that's gonna be an overly popular thing for parents to have to do. Parents are very busy. So we'll be really looking for that partnership to help with those reminders of the students. And if we do get repeated refusal on it, that's something that's important to remember. When you start getting into repeated refusal, what is that threshold? Because that then can result in the pre-expulsion conference that can then talk about, all right, do we need to take you to the board? And we need to be prepared then for that heavy discipline for kids that just refuse to follow the policy. Now, we're gonna get gripes, I agree. We're gonna have a lot of grumbling about it, but it is something that people will adapt to over time.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you. WASB contract.
Yep, this is the time of year that the WASB comes due. So we'll have it at the committee meeting tonight. It would be up for a vote in 2 weeks on the 24th. But just want to keep things in front of you as a board twice before you ever have to take any action on it, so.
I was looking at the WASB, the contract, and when I meet with Dr. Cook, I was asking him, does anybody in your staff really use this? And he told me, like, nobody really uses it. And I don't know, in years past, we were asked to do some classes online, and didn't seem like really anybody was really going on to WASB. It's a lot of money to spend if we're not using it.
I don't use it.
Wasn't there some shared services, some kind of sign language or something, or what?
That is, so that is the CISA contract, and that'll be up for,
CISA.
CISA contract. And so CISA is, it's a local entity. We all pay into it as school districts. We
Oh,
have
yeah.
a local, a representative.
This is the Wisconsin
WASB is the
Association
school
of
board.
Boards.
Yep. And so from a value standpoint, at least administratively speaking, the value for us, occasionally we get free legal counsel from the WASB on certain policy-related things. I think Tom has reached out to them a couple of times in the last year. The other area that we get some guidance on or have opportunities on is the convention. So those are the two pieces that we would use that for. But from a day-to-day standpoint, we get our policies from Neola. That is the service that we get. Neola costs us somewhere around $3,000 a year to get all of those templates. So it is cheaper than getting the policy manual from the WASB. And from just an overall service and guidance piece, it's not something that's used regularly on the administrative team.
Joe, in your professional opinion, is this a waste of money?
I wouldn't say it's a waste of money. I think we could spend the money elsewhere. So I don't want to call it a waste because they do. The convention downtown Milwaukee is a good experience. That being said, we can all go to our professional conferences as need be. I don't want to talk over Crosby anymore, sorry.
If you or your staff wanted to attend the WASB conference as non-members, is there an option to do so?
I believe there is.
Just you pay the non-member fee.
Yep,
correct?
non-member fee is a little bit higher, but it's still.
But it's not $11,205?
$11,000, no.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Yep.
Moving down to finance and facility topics.
Just say watermelon.
Thanks. All right. So I'm going to take the microphone here and just pull up an exhibit here. So just want to kind of outline where we're going to be here over the coming months here. So we're in June. We approved this document here, this timeline rather, for the budget building calendar. Give me a second while I make it bigger here. So you can see the things that we've accomplished. Here in June, we'll take a look at some salary budgets, so on and so forth. On July 1st, here as we look at the month of July, the DPI will give us an estimate of our state aid. So remember that what we spend in 23-24, we get reimbursed for a portion of that in 24-25. So what we spend this year becomes next year's aid. So with everybody having a 23-24 budget submitted for the most part, we all get estimates here on July 1st here. Later in July, we will then, I'll present a preliminary budget and tax levy for you to talk about. And then we'll do that again here in early August, and we'll look to approve that preliminary budget and tax levy. Once you approve that in August, I then move forward into the month of September and communicate that out to the community in advance of the budget hearing and annual meeting. So then that preliminary budget is the electors of the school district can attend the annual meeting. They can vote in approval or disapproval. It's not binding to the school board, but it's your chance to take the community's temperature on the tax levy that you're thinking and the budget that you're thinking. Come October, that is the final budget and tax levy. So once we have our final third Friday counts, a lot of the known things in terms of the state aid, so you get an estimate of aid on July 1st, but you get a final actual value on October 15th. Once you get all those details in, then in late October, we'll certify the final budget. So we move past the preliminary budget and preliminary tax levy. We move into the final budget and final tax levy at the end of October. So that's what's coming our way. I just want to bring that in front of you here so you kind of know where we are, where we're headed, see if there's any questions or concerns of anything here. Okay. Thank you. Yes. All right, next up then, declining enrollments. So as we talk about the third Friday in September, we take a third Friday snapshot of how many students we have in our schools. So I just want to talk about what declining enrollment, you know, we all know what it is, but like what's the impact here? So we take a 3-year average when we do our membership count. So again, when we take a look at the map in the corner there, and we look at the number of kids who live within our MASD school district boundaries and attend public schools. Now, most of those kids who live in the school district boundaries do it, like 95% of the students attend our schools, but 5% do open and roll out, perhaps to a virtual school offering somewhere. Perhaps they live closer to Kettle Moraine, so they go there. But we collect $11,325 per student. To the students who open and roll out, we redirect a part of that. But ultimately, what we need to do is we take a 3-year average. So if you kind of take a look on the chart here, you can see that we really peaked here in 2007-8, and we've gone down and we've come back up. And over the last 3 years here now, we've gone down. If we have another year of decrease in 24-25, we will have 3 consecutive years of declining enrollment. So therefore, the 3-year average from one year to the next will get smaller. So really what's going to happen is we would chop out this 4,659 students here and add on a lower one here. So the 3-year average is going to get smaller. So what I'll do is when I build the budget, I'm going to build 3 scenarios of what if our student FTE, our full-time equivalence, does not change or goes down by 50 or goes down by 100. And I'm just bringing to you right now, there's a mechanism that I'm going to get to here in about 30 seconds called the declining enrollment exemption. And when we develop your per member revenue limit, you take your 3-year average, you multiply it by your $11,325, then you plus or minus a few adjustments. And this is one of those adjustments you would add to. So you can see what those 3 values are if we don't grow. If the 23-24 student counts are the same in 24-25, so the plus 0 FTE, we have a $226,000 declining enrollment exemption. If we lose 50 students, it's $419,000, and at 100 students, it's $611,000. So here, if I go down below here, I have these 3 scenarios kind of laid out here of the basic. Again, this is how we define our operating budget. So I'm just going to approach the screen here real quick here. So again, the basic math, you can see it's 11,325, 3 scenarios. If we grow by 0, there's our 3-year average. If we decline by 50 and decline by 100, okay? You can see these adjustments in all 3 scenarios. In this declining enrollment exemption, it grows in such a way, if you take a look at the bottom line, it's the same across the board. So our budget is going to be known, but it's a question, well, how much of that's really, this declining enrollment exemption is one-time money, you're getting it one more, and then you have 1 year to right-size yourself and figure out how are you going to close that gap. So if we find ourselves in declining enrollment of 100 students, we're going to get $611,000 in our operating budget, but we have to expect and think of this as one-time money. So over the course of 24-25, when we talk about our staffing analysis of making sure, how are we built, what do we need to do, we would try to find ways to basically take that from the budget, reduce those in expenses, and make sure we're always where we need to be from a budget standpoint. This is just kids in our district. So again, yeah, we have about, if you take a look at the kids, these numbers here, the 3-year FTE membership, again, that represents the number of kids that live in our school district boundaries and attend public schools. 95% of these kids here attend our schools, 5% open and roll out, but then you add in those 500 or so, 600 or so open and roll in students, which puts us about that 4,900 student amount of kids that are in our, butts in seats, so to speak. So again, we just have to, I bring this up just to talk about this, put this on your radar. I'm not sounding any alarms right now, but we do have to acknowledge this as probably our reality. This is not unique to us. This is most school districts in the state of Wisconsin. So we'll be prepared. We'll do what it takes. We're not going to build a budget. I doubt we build a budget that's a deficit-based one. If right sizing needs to occur, we'll take care of it. So I just want to put this as a talking point for right now so that it doesn't blindside us later down the road. Are there any questions that I can answer for anybody here?
Do we have any idea of how many students we may potentially be losing to St. James as they open and St. John's as they expand?
No, that's a tough one there. we don't know that information until it's reported to us. So we could call and ask. If they don't want to share it, they don't have to. I don't know what the impact of those two will be, to be honest, at this point in time. What I do know about St. James right now is that the Archdiocese of Milwaukee that oversees the Catholic grade schools is the one that ultimately is going to bless, so to speak, bless the attendance boundaries that a school has. Right now, St. James has not been given an attendance boundary. So really, everything, I'd say on the east side of our district, the east 50% of our district, everything east of County Road I, call it, has an attendance boundary that goes to St. Joe's and Big Bend. So I think that's going to make it a little more difficult for St. James, if I had to take a guess at that one. But if they launch their first year and it goes successfully, I would imagine the Archdiocese would say, you had a school before, let's give you your attendance boundary back. That will obviously eat into St. Joe's attendance boundary, so there's a balancing act for them. I just really don't know how to answer the question you're asking, though. It'd be guesswork at best by me. That I don't know how to do it.
Jake?
I guess, looking at the last 6 years, I mean, COVID was a little bit different story, but you have a pretty consistent trend, right? Decline in enrollment. It sounds like that's happening across the state as well, which makes me think it's probably some sort of macro level.
It is.
Like, what can we do? Is there any, what does this correlate with? Can we look 5 years into the future?
Sure, I'll
10
tell you.
years into the future to try to get a feel for like where we're gonna hit step functions, where we're gonna have to make some big decisions? Because it seems like it's inevitable.
When mortgage rates come down, you'll see enrollment climb again. We are a destination school district. Right now, we don't have the number. If we have 300 second graders historically, when they come back to third grade, there's 8 to 10 more students. And then when they come back in fourth grade, there's another 8 to 10. And every single cohort historically has grown. And that has not really happened as much. I know home sales, and Carolyn, who works in the field of loans, could probably attest to this if she was here. The number of home sales in the state of Wisconsin in the 23 calendar year was as low in the last 20 or 25 years. I'm just speaking off of my hunch, but I bet it's correct.
Okay.
So this is a temporary economic phenomenon. Is there a deeper thing? You know, of course, there's declining birth rates. There's bigger things at play, but it kind of just, it magnifies what we're doing right now. I do think that as you see the ups and the downs will be up again, and student growth will come in when mortgages become more affordable. Right now, I think people if you have a 3% mortgage, you're not looking to get rid of that to sell your house, to move out here to get a 7% mortgage. That's just a really expensive proposition. So home sales are slowed down and the number of move-ins has followed suit.
Okay, thank you.
Tell you from the village standpoint, they just approved, it's very close to be happening, is another subdivision happening east of the river. I believe there's gonna be 98 single-family homes.
Behind the old Cerny's, Midway?
Yes.
Yes. And then,
the
by the
storage
Y,
facility?
there's gonna be hundreds of apartments built back there. And that looks like it's getting
Oh, with
close.
I?
Right off of Wolf.
No, the YMCA.
Why?
Yes. So there's gonna be a lot more building coming up in the next couple of years.
A lot of roofs, Vito.
That shop property, that old shop property is getting more valuable.
All right, anything else there, guys? Okay. Next thing, there's just a request from a board member here that I report some information about the facility usage at Mukwonago High School. So I reported this a couple years ago. I'm bringing it back for you right now. So you can just see over the last, give me a second while I just enlarge this here. So we have some popular gyms at the high school. So the North Gym is our oldest gym. You could kind of just, I broke all the usage. So again, this is outside of the school day. You know, if students are using it during the day, we're not looking at that. We're just basically saying once the end of school comes at 3 o'clock on a typical school day, who's using our facilities, what type of group are they, and then you can just kind of take a year-by-year snapshot of how many hours, you know, each gym is being used. So you can kind of take a look there at the North Gym. You know, there's a heavy emphasis there with MASD activities. So at times there's going to be our high school athletic teams or a high school student group, say our robotics team that we're familiar with, that are using those in an after-school sense. We have our MASD athletic teams that obviously are using those quite a bit. And then we have like local community sports groups there that use those quite a bit as well. The South Gym, again, you can see that that's a really popular area, really, in terms of the athletic usage there because of the turf that exists inside that facility. When you take a look at, if you're a local community sports team, say the Mukwonago Tribe baseball team at $20 an hour versus OAW in New Berlin on Racine Avenue for $300 an hour, that's a really good deal. And so that's a popular place for MASD kids and community members, civic groups. Our West Gym, our newest gym on the far west side of the high school, again, you can see those numbers there as well, and then our PAC as well. So, you know, the PAC goes through a number of cycles where the setup and tear down doesn't allow for it to be used as it's in transition, or it's set up and it can't be used for any other purpose without a ton of work here. But you know, you're ultimately seeing just those values where it's being actually used by kids or groups or community groups, so on and so forth. So I presented this just one other different snapshot there, so you can take a look at each one by month, because certainly these things are certainly cyclical and seasonal in nature. And when it gets cold outside, you see our gyms, the amount of use and requests go up dramatically there. So this is just for your information. Any questions or comments there?
Have we ever considered adjusting our prices a little bit? Not that I mean, we want to be good stewards of the community.
Sure.
But at $20 an hour, does that even cover our costs to keep the building open?
So we did that about 18 months ago, two years ago, somewhere in that time. We have 5 categories of groups that we define. So if you're a community, if you're a school-based organization, so let's say the Clarendon Cougars want to use the South Gym on the weekend, that's free. We don't charge our kids and our school groups anything. If you're a community-based organization, if you're a nonprofit, Boy Scouts, then it's very, very cheap. So we call you Group 2. And then there's Group 3, Group 4, Group 5. Group 5 is you're from somewhere else. There's no Mukwonago kids on your roster or in your organization. We charge you private rates. So there is kind of a tiered pricing approach. And we used to give the South Gym away for basically free, and then we institute that $20 charge. If you take, when we get to the budget building process and you take a look at our revenues, we have a facility rental that you'll see has gone up not significantly, but it's gone up to reflect that $20 increase, $20 hourly charge that a lot of our community groups are paying. And that helps with the heat, the toilet paper, the hand paper towels, the custodial services, the eventual replacement of a lot of that stuff is being paid for that way. So we have done that.
Okay.
And Muskego is currently building a brand new facility.
Yes, they are.
Catamaran is too.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Arrowhead's got one planned, correct?
I'm just going to assume yes to that one. But there's no doubt that there is a demand on those, and once you build it, they will come and it will be used, and the communities that have them will love them. Okay. Next up then, let's see what we got here. Next we have and I apologize that this isn't in here, but I have a paper copy of it here, and I'm just going to give you the print off here. So we have a resolution here and I'm just going to pass this to you, Dale, here. So just a resolution to, as a part of the closing process for the SOAR facility, you need to, by board action, identify me as somebody authorized to execute the deed and just finish the sale. We didn't take that process, and then the buyer and the seller, as they were going through the discovery phase of closing that out, realized that somebody needs to actually be given that power to do that, and that's what we're looking to do there. So hoping that we can do that tonight so we can just kind of keep that process moving, but basically my signature will go on the paperwork, and you're formally giving me that authority to do that and close it out. Okay?
It's actually there, it's in the executive session, so you have to be signed in, and then you can see that.
Okay.
And I'm only bringing that to your attention because once you get into executive session, there's more there, so if you're not signed in, you won't be able to see everything.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions on that one?
All right, the last, we've had a lot of conversations around the community survey update, and just to keep the information current, we had a little over 3,200 responses this afternoon. In contrast, we had about 3,175 when we went and did the survey last fall. So 3,200 responses. We have a very strong support for the concept in the survey. A lot of positive feedback from parents and from staff members. When we break that information out, and I don't have the final numbers, and I don't have kind of the Bill Foster math that you've seen, but right now it is trending about 48% of the community members, community respondents are in favor. About 42% are against the project idea, with the remaining 10% listed as undecided. So there isn't overwhelming support, there isn't overwhelming opposition of the respondents who are not connected to the school district. So for those individuals who are tuned in tonight, you know, whatever your feeling is on it, we really value the feedback that you are going to give us in this survey. So I just would again continue to encourage people to check out our website for information, but then also fill out that survey response. We do have the contact information listed for the school district for those individuals who would like another survey. If they've lost their survey, whatever it might be, they can get a hold of us, and we have copies of it even right out on our front desk.
Deadline is when?
June 24th.
And I ask everybody too, don't go to social media for answers. Dr. Cook and Tom Cardhoser are available to answer questions.
Yep. Please come with them. We had a great visit with somebody. Dale, thank you for helping make that connection. Had a great visit, great talk. We went and toured Parkview, pointed out some of the areas that we're trying to address with that, where we see some deficiencies in our building. And I think it just led to an overall very productive conversation. Really appreciate that gentleman coming in and taking the time.
All right, thank you. All right, up next is action items, hires, retirements, and resignations.
All right, we have contracts that were offered for the following employees, all with really easy to pronounce names. Leslie Simmermansik. I totally dismantled that name, I know I did. Sorry, Leslie, if you're watching. Joe Jenna, special education teacher at Mukwonago High School. Christina Oswald, who you met tonight, food service director. Taylor Rick, English language arts teacher at Parkview Middle School. Matthew Rasandich, a math teacher at Mukwonago High School. And then Sarah Schultz, a special education teacher at Clarendon Elementary School. And then we received resignations from Danielle Brennan, library technology specialist from Mukwonago High School. Kaylee Bricko, a special education teacher at Prairie View Elementary School. Carrie Falbo, a counselor at Rolling Hills. Amy Nelson, a social worker at Clarendon. Jenny Peterson, band director at Parkview. Kristen Roberts, a social worker at Mukwonago High School. And then Christopher Smith, a science teacher at Mukwonago High School.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the hires, retirements, and resignations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Up next on our agenda is executive session, Wisconsin Statute 19.85. We are going to be talking about superintendent's evaluation, the ULE negotiations, and teacher compensation, and MASD health clinic operator.
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go in executive session. Do roll call, please.
Mike?
Here.
Jake?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Vito?
Here.
Craig?
Here.
Crosby, yes.
We'll take a 5-minute break.